Good morning. Much earlier start today to get these hands in. So two hands, both of these hands continue with the Cbet turn and getting raised. And both of these hands are in early position. So hand number one, this is a 10 NL game. I open raise with ace jack offsuit from early position. Probably don't need to open up this wide. Ace Jack's gonna have to be a little bit careful because we could be dominated, possibly with Ace Queen. But at this table, we do have some loose players, some tight players. Loose one calls me, and big blind calls. So let's put some ranges on these players. I have 80 hands on him. He's 34-13. Calls 2 bets from the button about 33% of the time, but that's only 1 out of 3. He didn't raise, and that's important because if you 3-bet by position and he hasn't raised at all, or he hasn't 3-bet at all, he hasn't 3-bet at all in these 80 hands. So he's probably going to be playing pretty tight, at least with his raises. In 80 hands, it's entirely possible that you didn't get any hand to raise, so we'll just be somewhat tight. We'll say his call looks something like this. He is on the button, so he's going to have position on me. So that's 19.6. Remember, he has called a third of the time, but that's only 1 out of 3, so we'll stick there. Ace Jacks is going to be near the top of his range. It's offsuit though, so we lose playability because it's not suited. What about this player? This player is pretty tight, 16-6, 1% 3-bet. Pre-flop, he calls from the big blind 19% of the time. Calls from the big blind 19% of the time, but he 3-bets from the big blind 2% of the time. So I think he is probably going to be 3-betting about the same range, and actually I think it's going to be a little bit tighter. So I think kings plus ace king maybe. We're going to add these suited hands. We're going to take out these offsuit hands because he's probably not calling with them. We'll take those out because that's what he's going to raise. And then we are going to add back in some of these suited hands. Now, he could call, so I think maybe something like that. That's 18%. I think suited kings probably. It's only 2 big blinds to call, and there was 7.5 in the pot. I think that could be a call. Ace Jack maybe. I think King Jack and Queen Jack might play. We'll leave it at that. I think Ace 10 is probably just gonna fold. So Ace Spades, Jack Clubs. You'll see that we are also favored against them. So we should have the hand, but again, since we're not suited, it's gonna be hard for us to play it. All right, so we've got 9-7-6. We have backdoors flush draw, backdoor nut flush draw. We have a possibility of a backdoor straight, and we would be at the top end of the straight. So this player checks. He hasn't donked, so I'm going to say that he probably checks his entire range to us. And it's on us. I think when we look at open and straight draw, flush draw, he folds to Cbet out of position 50% of the time, folds in position 63% of the time. So say 55% of the time he's going to fold. So top pair plus flush draw, open and straight draws. That gives him 44%. I don't. Pocket pair below top pair is the 8s. I think that's already built in. Yeah, that's already built in. The gut shots maybe. So I think if I bet he's folding, yeah, at least 50% of the time. And even when he calls, we're gonna be at 32%. We're gonna be behind. We fold out a lot of hands that have equity against us, possibly. Um, but I do think he's going to be folding 50% of the time. So let's say he folds 50% of the time. What about villain 10? I think same type of situation. He is a looser, so he has not folded to a c-bet when he is in position. But there is a second player in. So and I think that's what's gonna matter. So I think if this other guy calls, I think he's gonna give up on his gut shots, and yeah, I think he's gonna give up on his gut shots, and then he'll probably check raise with the straights and possibly even the sets. This guy, he's got a player behind him. I do think he's gonna be calling with a lot of the same stuff. You'll see that the chance that he continues is a lot less. Middle pairs, all of those sevens. He's looser. He could probably call just to see what happens, and then if this guy calls, then he could probably be done with those hands. So I think he can call with a wider range that has me. And also I think on these hands he calls once and then probably gives up on the turn unless he improves somehow. So I'm gonna say he probably also folds 50% of the time, which means that the chance that they both fold is 25% of the time. So I do think that's gonna be decent for us to at least c-bet with. But at the same time, I think this is appropriate. We could easily check this, kind of plan to check call, because if we think about ranges, this range hits both of these guys a whole lot harder. If I was in this situation and I saw this board, when he bets, I'm gonna raise no matter what, because I don't think this board hits this early position pre-flop raisers range at all. And that's going to be tough on me. So if I was going to do that, I think here we should probably have just checked. I bet half pot, and we get both guys to call. So I think now once he calls, we'll add the gut shot to him. Once he calls, I think this guy's definitely going to call with the gut shots at that point. I take that back. He's going to give up on the gut shot because he's going to realize how far behind he is. All right, so 5 of spades hits. That kind of helps our flush draw. It doesn't really help with our straight. So now we have to think about how many 8s are in their range. 8s, there's not a whole lot of 8s, but they're there. So I think with our plan, I was probably thinking I'm going to barrel again on a spade or an 8 or a 10. And that's what I did. Again, I think I prefer to check the flop now, but I bet, and then he comes in for a raise, which is basically like min raise, and we get a call and it's back to me. So let's start with him. So he raises. What is he gonna raise with? I think he's gonna raise with straight, probably flush, straight flush, maybe the set, and maybe 2 pair. Probably not 2 pair. So set plus he's probably gonna raise with. I'm 19% equity versus him. This guy just calls. So I think the straight flush, we're going to take the straight flush out. I think the straight flush just calls. It's just that they're not going to raise at this point. Flush probably call. Yeah, flush calls. Straight calls. Sets call. 2 pair calls. Over pair 10 probably call. I don't know if a top pair calls since I already bet and we have a raise. I think the over pair calls, maybe just the 10s, and people give up. People give up on or can't give up over pairs as easily. All right, so he's calling those. I'm 22% equity versus one guy, 20% equity versus this guy, I am probably pretty far behind all of them. So let's check. So I fired up Hold'em EQ. I've got both of their ranges based on Flopzilla ranges and the board, and I'm playing Ace Jack, and you can see against both of them together I'm at 17%. So it's to me, I need 13% equity to call. I have more than that. I think here I'm thinking I am behind, that I need that spade to catch. So I did make the call, and I think this is the appropriate call. And then the queen of diamonds hits. Let's get that queen of diamonds. I'm going to have to be done with this hand. So this guy checks. I think when he checks, we're going to get rid of most of the flush. I think that, well, he doesn't have the ace high flush at all. But I think he's going to be betting the flush in the straights. I think sets two pairs are going to check. And if he had a straight flush, he's going to be betting that now. So basically all of this range, he's going to be checking. I check, and then what is he going to check behind? I think he checks his sets, his straights, because he's afraid of the flush. And you can see that I have 0% chance to win, and he shows trip sevens, so he had to have that in his range, and he had pocket eights for the straights, so sevens and eights. All right, so we got this hand. Let me close it out and get hand number 2. All right, so hand number 2, early position with jacks. Jack hearts, jack of spades. I open raise, and I get 2 callers. So I get an unknown from the early position player, and then I get the button. So I think this early position player, we're just going to have to go by default. He calls. He didn't 3-bet. So we're going to say most players 3-bet queens plus ace king at least. I think we'll just keep those. I think since he's in early position, he's going to have a tighter range. Maybe something like that. Maybe all of these ace suited. People like to play ace suited. That's 15%. My jacks are going to be solid against that. What about this player? I've got 25 hands. He's playing 44-2 or 44-12. He's called the big blind 50% of the time. He's probably going to play it somewhat wide. His 3-bets are 0. We haven't seen him 3-bet yet, so let's put him. We can be a little bit tighter on the ranges. He had the opportunity to call. We already have 1 caller. Let's take these. Yeah, let's leave those offsuit straight cards in there. And let's give him those 2 gappers. Maybe that. All right, so there's our ranges, and you can see that my jacks are going to be ahead. They are ahead against both of their ranges. So we see a flop of jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, and 7 of spades. All right, so here's what's notable or noteworthy. This player has 20 big blinds. There's 9.5 big blinds in the pot. All right, I have 57. He has 97. So versus him, our effective stacks is 21 big blinds. Against this opponent, my effective stack is 57 big blinds. So our pot right now is like a little over 2 SPR ratio for him, and we're at about 6 SPR 6. All right, so this player checks. What is he going to check? I'm going to assume that most players check everything, although he has dunked flop to 2 out of 4 times. So I'm going to take out top pair from his dunking range. Is it going to be all top pair? Let's take that out. No. I think what we're going to do is take out Jack 8, Jack 10. No, we're going to leave all of those in because he's got some straights. So he's 100% checking. My question is, what should I do? I think if I bet, I'm going to get called, and I think I'm going to get called a large chunk of the time. So if I bet here, I do think we're getting called by top pair. This pocket pair below top pairs of 10s, middle pairs. Maybe actually we're going to get those middle pairs in with the gut shot. So we're going to have flush draw, open and straight draw with the gut shots. I think all calling. So this first guy is probably calling 62.5% of the time. All right. What about this player? I think if I bet, he's probably calling with about the same. It's 3-way. So gut shots, open and straight draws, gut shots. So we're dealing with 62.8% of the time, 62% of the time. You can see that I'm favored. This, I don't think this is a pot to check. This is a pot to bet, to try to build up the pot, because there's going to be a lot of cards a lot of hands that will call here, and they're calling with on draws. So I do think we should bet. Is half pot good enough? Actually, I think I should probably go 2/3 pot. I think these hands are going to call half pot just as frequently as they would 2/3 pot, so we should probably go larger to start building up the pot, because with board pairs, I think we're getting paid off. So I bet, and they both call. So right now they both called. We're at 70% equity. Turns a 5 of spades, and he checks. So now 6-8 hits. 6-8 hits. Diamond misses. The gut shot misses. So if I bet what hands are going to call, I think top pair probably still calls. Flush draw calls. I think probably all the flush draws call, so the diamonds and the spades. Open-ended straight draws call. I don't know if all the gut shots call. I think most of the gut shots now might just give up if I bet. So this guy's calling 75% of the time. I think this player as well, he's going to probably call top pair. Pocket pair below top pairs at 10s, because he's got that gut shot, and he's got a pair of 10s. Yeah, I think the 10's going to call because he knows that he blocks straights. And then I think we're going to do the same thing, flush draws and the open-ended straight draws. So we're getting called a lot, and when we called, if they both call, we're at 70%. So I do think we should bet again. I bet half pot, and I think I should be betting 2/3. I should be betting this amount, whatever he has. And he calls, and then this guy shoves. I think since that bet that I made, I don't think his raise is especially telling. I think he could do it with open-ended straight draws and the flush draws, but I also think we're probably eliminating top pair hands. We're probably eliminating. I think the straight's gonna do that. I think the sets might do that. I don't think 2 pair, unless he's just that up and it's like, look, I want to see a river, so he does it with 2 pair plus, and his flush draws and his open-ended straight draws. Although I think those hands might just check behind, so I think he's gonna probably be. I think we're gonna be ahead, but of the hands, I do think he could have a straight. I call, and this second guy calls. So when he raised like that, I don't know if I was allowed to 3-bet, but I do think I could have I could have raised it and possibly myself shoved. And I think if I shoved, you may get a flush draw, you may get, open ended straight draws to call. But I think what he called my bet, he's going to call same ranges. All right, 10 of diamonds. That is not, I consider that not a good hand for me. Now, any 8 has a straight, any diamond has a flush, and I think those are the most likely hands that we're continuing. So, I bet basically all in. Although I think I should just be check calling. I am thinking that against this opponent, I'm probably just gonna, I'm gonna have to call. He could have the straight. He could have been calling with the 10 himself, with the Jack 10, 9 10. Diamond draw could have King Queen maybe as a gut shot. Probably not. But I think if I check, I could probably check call. And so let's see this. If I check, he's probably going to be betting maybe all of those. So you can see that. Ooh. Yeah, he's the green. He's ahead. He's got a lot of flushes, a lot of straights in his range. Yeah, I think that's a horrible card for me. Maybe I think maybe I did it correctly, but I don't know. Could we really check fold? So if I check and he bets me all in, I need 25% equity to call. I don't know. I'm barely there unless I think he's also doing it with like overcards or a top pair type hand. Trying to represent that flush. So he called. Let's see what he's going on. So when he calls, I don't think he's really calling with top pair anymore. He shows 10. He did have the 10, so he had trip 10s. That's good. But this guy had the straight, which is kind of interesting because I didn't put him on there. When we looked at it, I thought he'd be much tighter, but maybe with his gut shot, he had the pair and the gut shot draw. I guess he was short stacked and he wanted to see that river because he had an open and a straight draw. Yeah, had the open and a straight draw with the 8. So, all right, kind of tough to say if I got this hand or not. I do think when we bet, I should have bet larger. I should have bet 2/3 on the flop, and then I would have been able to put him all in on the turn. And then on the river, I think the river was a bad card for me because of the straight and the flush that connected. Question was what was he playing? He was playing the 10. He was playing the gut shot the entire time. But when it comes to the river, should I have check called or should I have let out myself? And here's where I think we had to consider, if I bet, what was he going to call with? If I bet he could probably call with 2 pair. Could he have called with top pair? Maybe. But would he have bet those top pair hands and 2 pair hands? I don't know. So I think maybe my bet on the river was okay. All right, so we'll end this. Hope you enjoyed this hand. Kind of a tough hand. Got lucky on this. Got lucky that he didn't have more money. All right. Look tomorrow for a couple more hands.